Hi, everybody. This is Getting Inside the Right Male Mind with Benjamin and Lisa Shield. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is so exciting. I love doing these because I actually created this so that I could have an hour with my husband so that we could just spend an hour together on Sundays and I could pick his brain and then share it with the world, because I think it's one of the most beautiful brains I've ever picked. You're welcome, honey. All right, so let's dive in. And today we're going to be talking about rejection. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we covered this topic in one of our groups. Benjamin and I do 3 different groups. I created a course about 5.5 years ago now called Emotionally Naked Dating. And that is the first course. Benjamin and I do all the Q&A together. And then we have 2 other groups, extension groups from that one. One is called SSW. That stands for the Sisterhood of Self-Actualized Women. And then the third group is our mastermind group. And that's for all the people that want to work directly with Benjamin and me and really have the advantage of being up close and personal with the guardian of your soul relationship. So we talked about this in our SSW group, but it's such a rich topic. We thought we would discuss it a little bit deeper and just a little more free form. So, hi, baby.
Hi, sweetheart.
It's great to see you. Fancy meeting you here. I woke up and there you were.
There I was.
You and 3 dogs. So yeah, let's just dive in. What is rejection? Like, what is rejection and where does it come from and why are we so afraid of it?
Well, I think rejection is what we feel in ourselves. It's not necessarily what another person does to us, but it's what we feel in ourselves and
what we do to ourselves.
What we do to ourselves. And the amount of rejection is in direct proportion to the amount of power we give to it.
Right.
So it's really ourselves that feel the rejection. For a person who we feel may be rejecting us, they may have their own wants and needs and judgments and attitudes at that moment, and it may not include us. And, hopefully they'll find just the right person, for them. But it doesn't mean that we're any less than, but we can so interpret this as the fear of not being enough, of never having what we want. And every rejection, if you could imagine like a long, long, long road that's filled with lights, and every rejection in the current moment just lights up all those rejections all the way down our lives,
Which makes it even that much more painful.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's more than just that incident of someone ghosting us or not returning our call or saying we may not be the right person for them. It lights up that whole pathway all the way back to childhood.
Yeah, to the very deepest hurts. I wanted to go back to something that you said in the beginning, because I think it's so important that when somebody rejects us, even if they make it about us, it's about them, but we take it personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, as I say, everyone at any given time has their own wants and needs and attitudes, judgments, and so on.
And life history. So let's give an example. Like somebody coming in on a date, right? And that person looks a certain way or is exhibiting certain behaviors. It triggers the other person, could remind him of his mother, could remind him of an ex-girlfriend, right? Something, and then cause all of those negative feelings, and you're just being you. Right?
Yeah. And I think one of the hazards of feeling rejected is that we tend to create stories of why they rejected us. And, because we're this, because we're not that. But the truth is, we don't know.
Mhm.
And it's so easy to create stories like, oh, it's because I didn't have a good hair day. Or, like I shouldn't have ordered this on the menu. I think all of us have had moments where we've been in a situation afterwards, we just kind of metaphorically hit our head against the wall and say, stupid, stupid, stupid.
So, and one thing I want to say is that the brain is going to make up those things.
Yeah.
Like you're going to feel rejected, and it's a knee-jerk reaction to start looking for why, to find an excuse or a reason. And anybody's going to do that. Anyone, if they feel that that sting, right, of rejection, you're going to immediately go into that. And it's so important. We talk about the two voices in our heads in the course, right? In the END course, we talk about the frenemy and the naked dater. And we talk about how that frenemy is going to start to take over when something happens, when you feel rejected, but then you want to catch it as quickly as you can and start to learn how to flip to the naked dater, right?
Yeah.
And the naked dater voice, the frenemy is going to say, you had a bad hair day, or you were feeling tired and you shouldn't have gone on the date. And of course you blew it because you weren't being yourself, whatever that frenemy tells you. But then you want to flip to the naked dater who would say what to you?
Yeah, well, the naked dater would say, you showed up, your essence showed up, regardless of your hair, regardless of, that you might have had spinach in your teeth, halfway through the meal, that you showed up. And your soulmate, the guardian of your soul. And again, we prefer guardian of your soul more than soulmate, in that soulmate is a noun. And it happens at that moment. You found someone, period. Guardian of your soul is a verb, meaning that not only is someone a soulmate, but it's a continued journey throughout both of your lives to protect each other.
Right.
To really provide safety and guidance and unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
So that person can see through whatever is going on for you that day, or whatever you feel is going on. They may not see it at all. You're thinking, oh gosh, I've had so many days where my makeup was better, or my hair was better, or I should not have worn this today. They're not going to care.
Right.
They're going to see
you,
and they're going to see, is this the person that I'd like to spend the rest of my life with? And, is this a dear person? Is this a kind person?
Mm-hmm.
Is this an emotionally available person? Does this person have a spirit of generosity and a warm heart, an interest in life?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're going to see. But we can be so myopic about little things of how we present ourselves. For me, it's like one of those single lens reflex cameras. And, you could focus on something being in the foreground, something being in the background. And in the foreground, it should always be coming into a date with, knowing your true essence, looking in the mirror before, you go on the date, and just say, this is who I am. Mm-hmm. And being very, very proud of who you are, of the moral integrity, the accomplishments, mm-hmm. the amount of love that you have to give.
And let me pause you, honey, because let's bring this back mm-hmm. to fear of rejection, right? That's what we want to happen. We want that person to just see us and just accept us and see all the good in us, right? And that's the person we ultimately want to be, and that's the person we want to be with. Mm. But we're so afraid that if we really put ourselves out there and give it our all, right, the very best we can do, and this other person just doesn't want what we have to offer, that hurts.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts. And I think no matter what we've accomplished in life, what financial stature, what professional accolades, the amount of education we've had, it doesn't hurt any less.
Right.
You know, and in some ways it may not even matter how much therapy we've had. It hurts.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts. And when it hurts, often the only voice we can hear is the voice of what we call the frenemy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that voice that is our inner critic, really blaming ourselves rather than saying, wow, you know, I hope that person finds exactly the person they're looking for.
Yeah. And you can't run away from rejection. You can't keep running away from it. Like, one of the things I realized that was stopping me so much in my own life was that I was so afraid of rejection. My mother was so mean, you know, she was just critical, angry, unpredictable, and mean to me, right? And a lot of the attention I got when I was younger, when I was growing up, was negative attention. And so I was desperate for it, but I also was terrified of it, because when I did draw attention to myself, I got the wrong attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started dating, I knew I had to start to walk through that, right? Like, I didn't feel that men really liked me. I didn't feel they were attracted to me. And every time I went on a date, and I think this is for a lot of the women, it was really, if I'm being honest, terrifying to sit across from a man. It was terrifying.
Yeah. In your course, you allude to every date is a stepping stone to love, but also every date is a stepping stone to self-love. So we have that, you know, because two people could experience the same event, you know, the same date, the same result, and one person can see it as a path of growth and development and self-love, and another person could see it as something terrible, where rejection not only lights up their consciousness for hours or days to come, and that rejection can become a prison.
Yeah.
You know, we become more narrow in the world. We are more fearful, and there are less things that we're willing to step out of our comfort zone to experience.
Yeah. I talk about the nature of the bridges to shake. And this is a metaphor for facing life on life's terms, right? There is an inherent nature, experiences in life, we have to learn how to navigate them. And the inherent nature of dating is to get rejected. And then it is to face rejection, and then see if you can love yourself in the face of it.
Would you take a moment and explain the nature of the bridge?
So the nature of the bridge was an experience where I was in a leadership course, and I didn't know that one of the things we were going to have to do was do a ropes course. I had fallen off a horse as a child when I was at summer camp, and I broke my shoulder, and I missed, I could have been a paraplegic. I was very fortunate, but I'm afraid of heights. I mean, and rightfully so. And so we had to walk across. This was one of several things we did over 2 weekends. They had to extend it over 2 excruciating weekends. But one of the exercises was that we were on belay. We had a harness, so if we fell, we wouldn't die, thank God. But the one thing, we had to walk across a suspension bridge, and between the suspension bridge, the slats were really far apart, so that you had to stretch and it would throw you off balance. And there were no handrails. So it was crazy, and it was long. This thing was long. Anyway, I was so terrified. I left my body, and I watched people fall, and, it was horrifying. And so my turn was coming up, and I didn't know what to do. So I just out of desperation, I literally just said, said in my own mind, what do I do? And this answer came back to me, and the answer was, go sit down under a bridge and meditate. Well, that was kind of ironic because I wasn't much of a meditator, especially back then. And, but I did. I went and found a redwood tree and I put my back up against it and I closed my eyes and I just started like breathing to try to get back in my body because I literally had left. I was numb. I was paralyzed with fear. And that same voice, I was breathing, and that same voice said to me, the nature of the bridge is to shake. Expect it to shake. It will shake. And I opened up my eyes and I was like, that's all you got for me? Like, come on. And so then I realized that I sat and thought about it, and it hit me that what the message was that this bridge was going to shake whether I liked it or not. And I needed to get to the other side. And so I couldn't fight the shaking. I had to go with it. I had to accept that it was going to shake and find a way to work with it instead of against it. And so I got up, I climbed up there, and I put my foot on the first plank in the
First,
yes.
just before you went up?
Oh, yes, somebody fell. This woman got up there and she was like, well, this was at the very beginning. This woman was like, Carmen, and she was like, I'll go first, and she's all climbing up the post, and she gets up there and she puts her foot on the first plank, and this thing starts shaking, and she freezes, and she can't move. So that was not a good thing for me to see, Anyway, so I realized, I got up there and I put my foot on the plank, except now I knew it was going to shake and that there was nothing I could do about it. So I stood there and I waited for it to stop shaking. And then I took a breath and I took the next step, and then it shook some more. And I waited for it to stop and I took the next step. And I did this one step after the other until I got to the other side. And I won't tell you it was graceful. I'm sure I looked awkward and uncomfortable as hell up there, but I got through it. And the feeling of accomplishment that I felt when I got to the other side, and not just because I was lucky or I went with the flow, but I used my ingenuity to get across. Mm-hmm. I accessed whatever I had in the moment, which was to surrender and listen to myself, right? To listen to my naked dater. And that's what we miss, is that facing rejection can be terribly uncomfortable. But if you take it as an inherent part of dating, right, if you accept that this is part of the nature of dating and that there's something to be learned in terms of our personal growth by facing it and walking through it, we actually it shapes us into the person we really need to be. So facing rejection is actually an intrinsic part of our self-love, mm-hmm, of our learning to love ourselves, that we can face rejection from other people, but not self-reject.
Yeah. And with dating,
mm-hmm,
we could use the image of making the container large enough to include what we would refer to as rejection. And hopefully there's another word for it other than a negative term, because it's just part of it. It's just part of it. And ideally we can embrace rejection. We could get a PhD in rejection, because the more we embrace it, the less it's considered other. If we make the container large enough to include that in dating, then it's just natural.
Right.
But if we make the container too narrow, saying that, every guy that, we sit across from, every person we sit across from needs to like us, is going to invite us out for a second date. And if something falls outside that limit, outside that container, well, then it hurts because it's other. And so, we want to embrace, rejection, get it, as I said, get a PhD in rejection. Because if we walk into a date knowing, just embracing that, and that, yes, it can go this way, it can go that way, I'm just going to enjoy this moment in time. And so when it goes one way or the other way, we don't take it as personally, because we know ahead of time, it can go this way, it can go that way, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. And it has nothing to do with me, it really has to do with the other person and where they're at that moment in time.
Yeah. So the first step, in facing rejection is really understanding that it is the nature of dating to bring this up, right? It is the nature. And so if you can reframe it and not see it as this person doesn't like me and therefore I'm unlovable, if you could change your own story around what rejection really is, you can approach it completely differently. So you would say to yourself, rejection is showing me the places where I still don't love myself, right? Because if I had accepted those things about me, nobody could tell me they were wrong or make me feel badly. So this person on this date is doing me a favor, because each time my frenemy starts to say, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not, so then I haven't accepted my looks. I'm rejecting my own physical appearance. That's my frenemy telling me that.
Yeah.
Right? And so, so the first step is first to reframe how you're looking at rejection and why you need to face it. You need to face it because the more you are able to let those places where you're self-rejecting come up, and you can look at them, right?
Yeah.
And start to accept yourself in those ways and love yourself, then there's freedom your personal freedom is on the other side of that.
Yeah. And one also becomes desensitized to rejection. And I have to add here that there's an author that he purposely spent 100 days, and each day he did something he knew he would be rejected.
Yeah. To get desensitized.
Yeah, he was very sensitive to rejection. So he did over 100 days, one each day, 100 rejections. And I just wanted to read you just a few of what he did. Okay, his name is Jia Jiang, G-I-A. J-I-A, capital J-I-A-N-G. And he did these 100 days of rejection. So among 90 other things, he asked a security guard for $100. He asked to be allowed to make an announcement over the PA system at Costco. He asked a hairstylist if he could cut her hair. He asked a donut shop if he could have a special donut in the shape of the Olympic rings. He asked if he could sell cookies for the Girl Scouts. He asked if he could be a greeter at Starbucks. He went into a PetSmart and asked if he can get a hair trim. And he challenged a CEO to a staring contest. So in our group, in our SSW, Sisters of Self-Actualized Women, we gave the homework of doing 3 things that they knew that they would be rejected.
Can't wait to hear.
Yeah. And it means it could be fun. It could be a lot of fun. And, ultimately the other person will realize that it's fun as well.
Yeah.
After the initial shock.
So I wanted to share that I was probably on the ultra extreme of codependency. So I grew up literally walking on eggshells. I was terrified of rejection, terrified. And I don't think there's any better way in life to really look at this issue of self-love. So many women come in, they do a lot of work and they're like, oh, I love myself. But then they go out into the dating world and they pick men who are not what they want, right? They settle. And that's a sign of not loving yourself. They also run away from rejection. A lot of women, I just want to put this out there, a lot of you are burying yourselves in your careers and working, wishing and hoping and praying that the right guy just waltzes into your life. And that may happen, but I wouldn't count on it. And a lot of why you're doing that is because you don't want to face rejection. It's one thing to think, I'm a lawyer and I'm educated and I'm worldly and I take care of my body and I eat right. But if you want a partner and you don't have one and you're not dating, there's something going on there that you're afraid to face rejection, because what if you really think you're so fabulous? There's a great book actually called If I'm So Wonderful, Why Am I Still Single? And I think it's a great title because there's a lot of women who think they're so wonderful, but they're single. And I really do think that they're not dating or they're making other things priorities because they're really afraid to face this. And you're going to have to get out there and walk through it if you want this. But I was terrified. I just want to share that. I was terrified to face rejection. I went on 96 first dates before I met my husband. And I learned how to face rejection. I learned how to sit across from a man and not take it personally, realize that I was making up stories, that I really didn't know why he didn't want to be with me or ask me on a second date or whatever. But yeah, I faced it. And now I don't think if I hadn't done that, I would be where I am today in every area of my life.
Right.
Not number one for what it gives us, because I don't take anything personally. I don't at all with you at all. I mean,
which means that if I'm grumpy, one day or, part of a day, you just see it. Well, that's probably Ben going through something, that he's got his own thing and it's not directed at me. It's coming from something internal. So you don't take it personally and saying, what did I do? Did I say something? It's more of an observation than a self-judgment.
Yeah. And as sure as the sun is going to come up tomorrow, I know you love me.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and even if it was about me, even if you were upset with me, it's not going to shake our love.
Right.
We can have things come up, but whether or not we love each other, we're going to be together for the rest of our days, that's not an issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead, baby.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's good.
But, all of us have issues with our body. The most beautiful supermodel is going to have issues with her body. Just everyone. Julia Roberts, you name it. We're all going to have issues with our bodies. And we had one participant in one of the groups who was concerned that she was a little bit, had a few extra pounds. And you'll remember the exact quote that someone said, but about the booty, about.
Oh, yeah. So, this is not my quote, but I was in a workshop once and there was a man in the workshop and he said, look, if you've got an ass just know some guy's digging on your ass, which I thought was amazing. But, get over it. Like if you're a woman, somebody is attracted to your particular body type, and that's the guy that you want. I think my husband's the most handsome man in the world, even with the nose included. I think he's I think he has the most beautiful face. I could never get tired of looking at it. But I always had body images. And he's told me over and over and over again, he doesn't want some skinny little girl. It's not attractive to him. And while, we always look at somebody like Charlize Theron as being like a stunning beauty, I really believe that for you, you think I'm beautiful.
I do. Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But so, and that was something that I think every woman worries about. Is a man going to think I'm beautiful enough? And as I grow older, will he still find me beautiful? Because it is threatening to us to know that men are visual. They are visual. And I think we worry that over time, there are sometimes things we don't have any control over. Some of it we do. Yeah, but I think women are not just worried about rejection in the dating process, but that, our husbands and our partners will reject us with time, because time isn't always good to us. Aging is, it's tough.
Well, in some cases, in many, many cases, time is good to us. I think both
Well, it's been good to us.
Yeah, I think you and I look far better than we did 19 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's because we're in a loving, committed relationship. We love each other. We're happy each day. And it changes us. You've become even more beautiful than when we first met, almost 20 years later. And I feel I've become more handsome.
Yeah.
But it's because of the relationship. There's no way to test this theory, but because I wouldn't know what I would look like without this relationship. But I know that our life experience has molded me in such a positive way. It shows on my face. It shows on my body. And I would wish this for anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone, everyone.
Yeah. Well, and also I think we take care of ourselves because we love each other and we want to be attractive to one another. So for me, I'm part of you, right? We're part of each other. I'm your female counterpart. And it is so important that I show up in this relationship for you and for us in every way. And what's been so beautiful about that, honey, is that desire to show up for us gives me this beautiful reason for being here and wanting to, please you and wanting for our relationship to flourish, but for us to be able to do the things that we want to do in life, right? And so even my work is play. We make it so much fun, I know those calls, like our Q&A calls, are tough for you, but
I look forward to them.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear that, because I never want you doing something with your time that doesn't give you fulfillment. So that's wonderful to hear. That makes me so happy, because I know you would do it for me. Yeah. But anyway, I think I lost my train of thought. I just know how much our love, and I think that we can tie this back to rejection. I don't think two people could have this kind of relationship if the rejection piece wasn't out of the way and we hadn't gotten to this level of self-love and self-knowing, self-acceptance, to be able to fully be free in this relationship and not take things personally.
Yeah.
Right? but getting through the rejection. When I dated, I really, really understood that life is a personal growth path. Like, this is teaching us there's opportunities to grow. If you're looking at life as a teacher, right? And life experience. And so one of the things that I did was I embraced that. And I said, look, anything that challenges me in this journey, I'm going to face it. I'm going to face it and not push away from it, but walk towards it and through it so that I can get to the other side. Yeah, it's all about rejection. Dating really is all about rejection.
Yeah.
And that's what we're running away from. We're terrified of it.
Yeah. Not to discount, when we learn to eventually embrace rejection, it may still hurt, but we're able to listen to the voice of what we call the naked dater sooner and sooner and sooner.
And we're able to get out of situations sooner and sooner and sooner and not have to go down them, right? Like, I had a boyfriend, we were dating, and then he did a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde one night. He drank too much and became not just drunk, but violent. It was horrifying because normally he was the sweetest man on the planet. And then he turned into this monster. Like, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is not a story. Like, it's not a novel. It is a reality. It was unbelievable. And the next day I took my things, I left. And the next day he called me and said, I'll go to AA, I'll deal with this and whatever. And I said to him, you need to go down that road. I don't. I mean, the level of clarity, the lack of neediness, like, I didn't need to go any further. I could just see the writing on the wall. And I had been down that road before. And I just literally said, this is where we end. I'm not going down that road. I said, you need to go down that road. I've been there. I don't need to do this again.
Which brings us to the other side of the coin of how we reject another person, because the nature of dating also, doesn't just involve us feeling, occasionally feeling rejection, but there are times that we have to feel like we're rejecting another person, maybe a very kind, sweet person, lovely in every way, but just not someone that we would really picture being with a year or 5 years or 15 years down the road. Mm-hmm. And so, can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I know for you, rejecting another person is even harder than being rejected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. When I was dating 2 decades ago, I would much rather be rejected than having to tell someone who was clearly, for lack of a better vocabulary, into me, maybe saw a future. We really clicked on the first date. There was a lot of rapport, a lot of vulnerability, but it just wasn't someone that, I would see being with down the road. To when I'll use the term reject, I've come to realize that it would actually be a gift.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't end that soon, like quickly, then the person becomes more involved and a mini relationship begins. And it's like a slow train that starts building up momentum.
And if I can add to that, it's also unkind. Like, you wouldn't want someone to stay with you out of pity or waste your time if they're really not into it.
Yeah. So it's a gift. You're giving someone a gift.
You're setting them free.
Yeah, you're setting them free.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you kind of hold on to them, and there are reasons where it could be that we're very kind people. The thought of hurting someone just breaks our heart even more than we think it would break theirs. But we may also hold on to people because we're getting accolades. This person's into us, all that. But it's a gift. It is a gift to someone to end it quickly.
Yeah.
And if we don't, both people are tethered along their journey to find the guardian of their soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you take away the other person's choice. Like, what if they would much rather not be with you? You're like making that decision for them. I mean, it's crazy. But the other, like the very worst aspect of not wanting to reject other people is ghosting.
Oh, horrible, horrible. Ghosting is
Immature.
well, it's immature, and I think it's such an appropriate name because ghosting is like leaving a lot of dead bodies in one's path. It doesn't allow for closure for the other person. And even if, just a simple line saying that it was wonderful to have the time together and there may not be the chemistry or we may not ultimately be a match. I wish you the very best on your dating journey. God bless you. But without that, and someone is just staring at their phone waiting for a text to come in because there may have been some intimacy the night before, there may have been kind of the hope or promise of something more, and there's nothing. It's almost like being in an intense telephone conversation. You're just really deep in it. And then someone cuts the cord and you're just sitting there with a receiver with nothing coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So ghosting, if you think about it, is in many ways what it seems like you're doing is it's a lie. So the ghoster, the person who's doing the ghosting, is lying to themselves. And they're saying, I don't want to lead them on, so it's better just to cut it.
Yeah.
Which is all lies, because here's the deal. You're hurting yourself when you do this because, again, you don't grow when you don't face things. We grow by facing certain situations and using our wherewithal to walk through that particular circumstance. But if we're just walking away from things and we're leaving threads, loose threads or things untied, all we're doing is we keep staying in the same place. We don't evolve. And this is all about personal evolution. It's about personal growth. It's about, many of us, myself, and I know for sure, I had a dream of a kind of relationship I was looking for, but I didn't have the emotional makeup to have that kind of relationship. And if I can't face rejection and learn how to walk through it in dating, how am I going to do that with a partner? Every time a partner comes and says, hey, this came up for me and I wanted to talk to you about it, it's going to feel like he doesn't love me. He doesn't accept me for who I am. And then that leads to fighting and arguing and feeling misunderstood. And this all starts with facing rejection, right?
And I know that you often encourage people to give people a second chance. But little things can be a microcosm that represent a macrocosm. So little things they do. So if someone ghosts, you and I may differ on this, I'm not sure, but it's such an act, I'll call it an act of violence, by omission. It really is, because an act of violence is something that's hurtful to another person, whether it's physical or mental or spiritual. And ghosting another person is hideous, very,
it really
very
is.
hurtful.
It's hideous, hideous behavior.
Yeah. And again, one is just leaving a path of what I will call dead bodies, in the wake. People are often surprised when they stop ghosting and they will just have one or two lines just saying, it was lovely to meet you. Yeah. It's clear that we're not a match. I wish you the very best on your dating journey. Often people will get, thank you so much for letting me know.
Well, and we encourage that. We encourage that behavior in our course. Even if somebody will, if a guy ghosts one of our women, we really encourage them just to send a letter, an email, or a text and say, it was lovely. I just wanted to say thank you. It was lovely meeting you. Apparently, it looks like we're not a match, but I really do want to say I had a lovely time and wish you all the best in your search. And our women will get back messages from the guys that say, thank you. I was meaning to write to you. Yeah, right. But I enjoyed meeting you too. And, I wish you all the best. And for the woman, if she's left with feeling like, oh, I would have liked to have had another date, she doesn't leave on a bad note. She completes that. She doesn't leave loose ends or loose threads. There's this wonderful line from Napoleon Hill, and he says, it's always your next move. And I love that because he writes for business, but that applies to life. I don't have to sit and be a victim. I don't have to sit there and feel like, oh my God, he ghosted me. Woe is me. Here I go again. I can take the higher road and do what feels good for me. I don't have to sit there and feel rejected because this other person wasn't mature enough to reach out and say, I don't think we're a match. I can take the higher road and and feel good about myself, and not allow it to bring me down.
Yeah. And on that note, with ghosting, the person who ghosted can feel rejected. But the reason why, for example, a man would ghost is that he himself has fear of rejection.
Yeah.
He has fear that if he, sends a note saying that I had a lovely time, it's clear that someone's going to say, what do you mean? What's wrong with me? Give me reasons, or, I didn't want to go out with you anyway, so I don't know why you're even writing.
Yeah.
So the ghoster actually has more fear of rejection than the person being ghosted.
Yeah.
But if there is a elegant, kind way to tie things up, and it was so nice meeting you. I had a wonderful time. You have so many wonderful qualities. It's clear that we're not a match, and I want to wish you the very best on your dating journey. I hope you find just the right person for you. So instead of two people feeling rejected,
right,
there is this warmth, this communication, this finality that ends in where both people are elevated.
Yeah.
Where with ghosting, both people are, for lack of a better term, depressed. The opposite of elevated.
And it is so important to remember that you don't want to be with a person who ghosts. Like, that's the bottom line. Like that, there may have been things to look at. I'm not saying on the date that there might not be things that I needed to look at, if guys weren't asking me out again and again and again and again. I mean, clearly there was something I needed to look at inside of me. But at the same time, I don't want to be with a man who would ghost, because that's just not a level of maturity. That person can't communicate artfully or the way I would want my guy to be able to communicate with me about things. So that would be an absolute no.
Yeah. In your course, the Emotionally Naked Dating course, they work out the final five, what we call the final five. The final five are people, participants do an inventory of their most important relationships. And they will circle those things in the inventory that repeat themselves, things that they've settled for in past relationships that they're not willing to settle for in the relationship to come.
Yeah.
And so people often say, because they've settled for that they want someone who is emotionally available, who possesses self-awareness, who is impeccable with their word, who is honest, who is protective, all of those things. And ghosting is the antithesis of that.
Yeah. Tara said, ghosting doesn't help me out. How am I supposed to know if there's something I can change or improve on? At least a reason for the ghosting or rejection would be nice. Tara, or Tara, I'm never sure who pronounces it which way. Yeah, what would you say to that, baby?
Well, it's always fair to ask someone, is there any feedback you'd like to give me? I won't necessarily write back, but it would be a great source of information. It would be, really wonderful for me to know. If you could share a couple things, and I promise, I won't write back. I would just really hold it in my heart. And if people do it, and if there are things that repeat themselves, that come up more than twice or repeatedly, then it's something that we put our hands together and we say, thank you, because it was a blind spot. I never would have known this about myself if you didn't give me the feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always fair to ask, even if someone ghosts, and knowing that someone who ghosts, we don't know their story. So we don't know how the feedback is coming back. So again, we want to really keep an open heart, be open to it, not take things too personally. But again, when things repeat themselves.
Yeah. No, it's the repetition.
Yeah.
So if you ever were to ask a man why, if he would give you feedback, you cannot take one person's feedback as written in stone. So it might, you want to hear what he says and then think about, have I heard this from other people before? Have I heard this at work or from my kids or something similar from my siblings? But you do not want to take one piece of feedback and amplify it and make it as if that's the thing. So you have to have heard it before, and it has to have like a repetition for it to be true. So if you're hearing like from several men, gosh, I couldn't tell if you were interested in me or not. I really liked you, but you didn't show enough enthusiasm, and you hear that from several people, or if your girlfriends have told you in the past, yeah, I when I first met you, it was so hard to tell if you liked me or not, and you're hearing a common thread, then that is advice that you need to listen to.
Or that someone may have come into a date with the same attitude they use in their corporate life.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's perhaps a lack of vulnerability. And it's not easy for the person sitting across the table at a Starbucks to, later verbalize this. It takes courage on their part.
And self-awareness.
Self-awareness, humanity. And occasionally you'll get feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to consider these little pieces of gold that come to us. Occasionally it'll be coal. but for us to get feedback saying that, I just felt that I was on a job interview, or, whatever it was.
Or you're two in your head.
Yeah, this is gold. It's not like something crushing. It's just like, as I alluded to, just putting your hands together and saying, thank you, because I didn't realize how I was coming across. And just like every date is a stepping stone towards love, towards finding the guardian of your soul, these nuggets will be.
But one thing to remember is it's got to be, kind feedback. Like first of all, if you were on a date and your date gave you feedback that said you're self-absorbed, or I felt like you were self-absorbed, and nobody has ever said that, that could be his projection.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying it's important to reference back. Have I heard the same feedback? Does it feel familiar to me?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Dating is very vulnerable. The other person could be watching another movie. Whatever it is, we don't know. And so we look for those nuggets of gold. We realize when there's feedback and, it's someone else's projection, it's worth it. It's worth to get those nuggets of gold that may be repeating, feedback that repeats itself. And, that is worth the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to end there because it is 11 o'clock
Wow,
and
it
an
went by
hour
fast.
just flew by. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We are so grateful. Please give us a thumbs up or a heart. That lets us know that you really liked what you heard.
People can catch you on Mondays and Tuesdays.
Yes. Yes, I do a Facebook Live on Monday at noon Mountain Time. It's called Lunch with Lisa. I do another Facebook Live Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. It is called Live with Lisa. That's a Q&A. And then the third one is Getting Inside the Right Male Mind with my husband, Benjamin.
Every Sunday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time.
Exactly. So please come back and see us. Our love to you all. This is so much fun for us. I hope it was as much fun for you. Please get out there and don't be afraid. The more you face rejection, the more free you will feel because you won't take it personally. And the less things you take personally, the more you can show up as who you truly are so that the guardian of your soul can find you and fall in love with you. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.